So just days after the world got its first American pope, Leo XIV, something really unexpected happened, almost secretive.
Right. In the Apostolic Palace, Pope Leo XIV holds this private, totally unannounced meeting with Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle.
And the timing, that's what really grabs you, isn't it?
Exactly. It's the heart of the mystery here. I mean, this wasn't some scheduled thing, no standard briefing.
No press, nothing.
Completely behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Just the two of them. And why that matters so much? Well, Cardinal Tagle was, widely seen as a front runner, maybe a likely successor to Pope Francis.
And yet, days after the conclave picks someone else, he's the one summoned by the man they did choose.
It feels less like routine church business and more like a deliberate signal.
A choice made right after this huge shift. It immediately makes you ask, why Tagle? Why so quickly?
And what could possibly be so important, so sensitive, that it demanded that kind of total privacy, especially so soon after Leo XIV took the reins.
So our deep dive today, it's into the specific, really intriguing moment. We've got sources, reports, analyses, reflections from inside the Vatican, outside too, to help us unpack it.
Yeah, our goal here is to get beyond just the bare fact that it happened. We want to explore why, what might have been on the table, and crucially, what does this meeting signal about the direction Pope Leo XIV wants to take the church?
Because this isn't just a news blip. It feels like it could be. Well, subtle maybe, but potentially a really profound turning point.
Okay, let's try and picture it. The Apostolic Palace. You imagine these heavy, imposing wooden doors.
Pope Leo glances up, maybe a slight nod. The doors open. Cardinal Tagle enters. Alone.
And that word alone, it's key. The sources really stress the level of privacy here.
Extraordinary level.
No interpreters, no entourage, not even Tagle's usual aides allowed inside. Just these two men facing each other, carrying, the weight of this moment.
In the official record, it's almost comically brief.
Right. The Vatican press office puts out just one single line.
The Holy Father received in private audience His Eminence, Cardinal Luis Antonio G. Tagle. That's literally it.
Nothing else. No context, no hint about the topic. And that brevity, well, it just fueled all the speculation, didn't it?
And the length of the meeting, too. That's a clue in itself.
Definitely. Nearly an hour. This wasn't just a quick courtesy call.
Not 5 minutes.
No. In the Vatican, where audiences can be timed down to the minute, an hour behind closed doors, that tells you this was a serious conversation, something that couldn't be rushed or, overheard.
So you've got the secrecy, the timing right after the election, the significant length. It all points to something way beyond the ordinary.
Was it about a specific job, a formal appointment for Tagle, maybe a big role?
Or was it like some sources hint something deeper, more personal, a meeting of minds about where the church goes next?
That's the puzzle the silence creates. And it happened May 16th, just a week after Pope Leo's inaugural address.
An address all about listening, wasn't it?
Exactly. Calling for a church with open ears, open hands, putting the marginalized right at the center. So to then meet privately, not with some head of state or, a Vatican old guard figure.
But with Tagle, seen as a rival, a voice from the global south.
It feels incredibly deliberate. Not for public show, but a foundational, personal act of leadership.
Okay, let's zoom in on these two men. First, Pope Leo XIV, Cardinal Robert Prevost, before the conclave. His background, well, it immediately jumps out. Born in Chicago, Illinois, 1955. Not your typical path to the papacy.
No, definitely not the standard Vatican track. His roots, as the sources really emphasize, aren't in those curial corridors. They were shaped by the streets, by ordinary people, and hugely by his years as a missionary.
In Peru, right.
Yes, significant time there as an Augustinian. Living and working in a region dealing with deep poverty, political unrest, but also immense spiritual hunger. He wasn't Cardinal Prevost there. He was just Padre Roberto to the locals.
And that experience, living among the poor, serving them, it seems absolutely fundamental to who he is.
It seems so. Building trust not through titles, but by just being there. Walking with people who had nothing. Serving quietly. Learning a whole new culture.
And listening. Deeply listening before speaking. Not backing down when things got tough.
And that character, that quiet strength, seems to be what led to his rise, though it wasn't a flashy ascent. Pope Francis made him Bishop of Chiclayo, Peru, back in 2014.
And then brought him to Rome for a really key job.
Hugely key. Overseeing the selection and review of bishops worldwide. The dicastery for bishops. That's one of the most sensitive, powerful roles there is.
Because bishops lead the church locally everywhere.
Exactly. So placing him there, quietly, put him right at the heart of global church governance. And Francis clearly trusted him, turning to him for difficult tasks, needing discretion, needing compassion.
And then came the 2025 conclave. His election was a surprise to many.
A big surprise. The first American pope. But the cardinals, it seems, looked past the passport. They saw a shepherd, someone forged in mission, not a Vatican politician or a prepackaged reformer.
Someone who knew how to serve without needing the spotlight, who had that kind of quiet steadiness needed for what's clearly a turbulent time for the church.
The symbolism is huge. Historic for Americans, obviously. But it's also a powerful signal that the church leadership values experience from the peripheries, as Pope Francis would say.
And for Peruvians?
Yeah, incredibly personal. The man who walked their streets, knocked on their doors, is now leading the global church. It suggests that leadership now might be measured less by charisma and control and more by character and humility.
And while the election was quiet, his first days were busy, an intense private schedule that definitely included this meeting.
Right. Now let's shift to Cardinal Tagle. His background is just as compelling, but different. Born in the Philippines, 1957. Humble beginnings, fisherman, father, mother of Chinese descent. No obvious power base there either.
No political path?
Not at all. What really defines him, according to the sources, is this remarkable mix. Quiet sensitivity, a brilliant theological mind. He got his doctorate in Rome with distinction, but also this deep, genuine pastoral warmth.
People just listen when he speaks.
That's what they say. You instinctively listen.
And his ministry seems to reflect that perfectly. He went back to the Philippines after studying in Rome.
Driven by this idea that theology only matters if it connects with people's real lives, their hurts. His homilies weren't dry lectures.
They were stories, people cried, they laughed.
Exactly. He spoke the language of the people. Simple, honest, moving.
He became Archbishop of Manila in 2011. That felt almost destined, didn't it?
It did, in the Philippines. He became this truly beloved figure, this voice of mercy, literally opening cathedral doors to the poor, holding confession in public parks, always pushing the clergy towards service, not control.
And that's where the Asian Francis's nickname came from.
Precisely. Not because he was copying Pope Francis, but because they seemed to share that same fundamental rhythm, that compassion, simplicity, that courage to be vulnerable, even cry in public.
And Pope Francis saw that too, bringing him to the Vatican in 2015.
Right, as prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. A huge role, basically guiding the church's mission efforts in areas where Catholicism is young, maybe fragile, sometimes even facing persecution.
A role that fits his view of evangelization perfectly.
As encounter, right, sharing faith is a relationship, not just imposing rules.
And personally, the descriptions are striking, avoids the spotlight.
Cries easily when moved by people's stories, spends long hours in prayer, carries the church's sorrows quietly. But that authenticity, that's his power. It draws thousands.
He weeps for migrants, stops for the marginalized, talks about Christ like he just had coffee with him.
And because of all that, his bread building, his tenderness, his connection to the grassroots, many really thought he would be the next pope.
But when Leo was chosen,
his reaction was apparently calm acceptance, smiled, prayed, gave thanks, no bitterness. Just ready to serve. So now he's seen not as a rival who lost, but maybe as a vital collaborator for this new papacy.
And his impact, his authenticity, you can't deny it. People weep when he speaks because they feel that truth, that deep human experience behind the words.
He embodies that idea of the church being truest when it kneels in love with people. A man of God carrying these big roles with grace, a beloved voice.
So here's where it gets really interesting, this intersection. You have Leo, American, deep roots in Peru, structured, contemplative, theologically precise, pastoral concern from Latin America.
And then Tagle, Filipino, Asian roots, emotional openness, deep theological heart, but also that incredible emotional fluency, cultural sensitivity from Asia.
Different continents, different styles, different temperaments. On the surface, quite different.
But the sources suggest that it's in those differences that you find this really powerful potential for unity.
And their paths had crossed before this meeting, right?
Oh, yes, before the election. When Leo was heading the dicastery for bishops, looking for those bishops with holiness and a missionary heart. Well, Cardinal Tagle, as head of evangelization, was the embodiment of global mission.
So they were already working in overlapping circles.
With a shared vision, it seems. A church that listens, walks with the poor, preaches through action and relationship.
It wasn't just professional then. There was a deeper recognition.
It sounds like it. They'd seen each other operate under pressure, relying on prayer. Tagle comforting people, Leo handling those incredibly delicate bishop appointments with quiet grace. They likely saw a shared commitment beyond just Vatican politics.
Which makes Pope Leo's first move, keeping Tagle close, so significant.
Profoundly significant. As the new pope, Leo could have cleaned house, replaced all the department heads. That's standard.
Bring in your own team.
But he didn't. He paused. He listened. And he very clearly signaled with this private meeting that Tagle was someone he trusted implicitly, someone he needed. This wasn't politics. It feels like a choice based on that mutual trust built over time.
And the timing of this collaboration, starting right now, feels critical.
Absolutely. The sources all point to the immense pressures the church is facing globally. Secularism, internal divisions, global injustice, connecting with younger generations.
Yeah. Navigating all that requires strength, but maybe not just brute strength.
Exactly. Strength in unity. Not a forced uniform unity, but one built on respect, diverse viewpoints, and shared core values.
And their unique gifts seem perfectly matched for this moment.
You have Leo's theological precision and pastoral grounding from Latin America, his understanding of the margins, and Tagle's emotional fluency, his cultural sensitivity from Asia, his lived inclusivity, his gift for connecting doctrine to daily life.
Together, it's a powerful combination, an alignment of global perspectives and essential qualities for what feels like a necessary spiritual renewal.
Yeah, a deeper renewal.
Okay, so given the Vatican's total silence on what they actually discussed in that meeting, well, the speculation machine went into high gear.
It's the silence that speaks volumes, isn't it? What could take nearly an hour. Something was about a formal promotion for Tagle.
Right, he was technically pro-prefect of evangelization.
Meaning, he ran the department, but wasn't yet a cardinal bishop. Making him full prefect, elevating him, would be a significant formal step. Put him on par with other major department heads.
Others suggest a different role, maybe even more central.
Like Leo's old job, head of the dicastery for bishops. That's vacant now.
And absolutely critical. Vetting bishops worldwide requires huge trust, global credibility.
And honestly, few names carry that kind of respect and breadth of experience like Tagle's does.
But what if? What if it wasn't about a specific job title at all?
That's what several sources suggest. That might have been something much deeper, a foundational chat about shared vision, strategic alignment for the new papacy.
Two key global figures asking the big questions in private. Where do we steer this ship now? What are the non-negotiables?
Yeah, maybe Leo seeking Tagle's unique insights, taking the temperature globally, signaling who holds his deepest trust right from the start.
Based on the chatter among Vatican watchers, there's a strong feeling Tagle will take on a pivotal role, maybe something beyond his current job.
Given the church's needs right now, renewal inside, effective outreach outside. It makes sense.
What specific roles are being talked about?
Well, some suggest overseeing an expanded mission focused really intensely on the marginalized, or maybe a central advisory role on engaging with our fractured pluralistic world, how to speak across divides faithfully.
That sounds like a fit. What else?
Another interesting idea is Tagle acting as a kind of special papal ambassador for global dialogue, representing Leo at major international interfaith events. That needs theological weight, but also huge emotional intelligence, cultural sensitivity.
All things people associate with him.
Exactly. And then there's talk about him potentially leading some new initiative focused specifically on pastoral engagement with the global south.
Where the church is growing fast, but often feels distant from Rome.
Precisely. Someone like Tagle could be that vital link, bringing grassroots experiences right into Vatican decision-making.
His suitability just seems obvious, really. Communicating gently across divides, bridging east and west, moving between high theology and heartfelt stories.
He connects doctrine to lived reality. And younger Catholics especially really connect with his authenticity.
So any elevated role for him sends a huge message, doesn't it?
A massive symbolic message. That Pope Leo is serious about representation from the global south, serious about listening to overlooked voices, serious about recommitting to mercy and pastoral care, not just bureaucracy. He's a bridge for many who feel disconnected.
So how did the world react to the news of this private meeting, even with just that one-line announcement?
Sources show a really widespread reaction. Curiosity, yes, but also a lot of hope. Cautious excitement, maybe? From Manila, across Latin America, the US, Europe. It felt like more than just job speculation. It felt like a signpost.
A potential path forward.
Right. In the Philippines, understandably, it was deeply emotional. Prayer groups, masses offered for them both, a real sense of renewed hope. People felt this connection was exactly what the church needed: compassion, humility, and leadership.
And Latin America, especially those who knew Padre Roberto.
Intensely personal, inspiring. Communities that felt seen by him felt affirmed again. The feeling was, he knows us, and now he's listening to the world.
What about American Catholics? Pride in the first American pope, but also
Optimism about his early moves. Choosing to pause, discern, meet privately with Tagle. Many saw that as radical in today's world. Spiritual, refreshing. Someone say, this feels like the church being what it's supposed to be. Substance over spectacle.
And for those often overlooked voices, Global South, lay Catholics.
Immense symbolic power. A sign the institutional church hasn't forgotten them, that their experiences count. A young Catholic in Nairobi put it perfectly. When leaders like Pope Leo and Cardinal Tagle talk together, people like us feel seen and included.
Even the skeptics.
Even they seemed more thoughtful than critical, expressing that longing for authenticity, for leaders who care more about people than positions. The message of humility as strength resonated with lay groups too. Youth, immigrants, interfaith dialogue folks.
And all this is happening while the church globally feels like it's at, well, a crossroads.
A critical crossroads. There's this real sense of uncertainty everywhere. Shifting cultures, fewer vocations in the West, a distance from younger generations. It's not collapse, but transformation. How do you navigate that without losing your soul?
And that's where Leo's leadership and who he chooses to work with becomes so crucial.
Absolutely. What we might be seeing is a church being refined, maybe painfully, but not necessarily declining. Leo's focus on reflection, listening. It seems different from just trying to consolidate power or control everything from the center.
He seems to be asking the deep questions. Who aren't we hearing? Where have we become distant? What needs rekindling?
And Tagle's gifts are just irreplaceable in that context. He's that bridge between tradition and new expressions of faith, especially from Asia. He connects doctrine to real life. He speaks that language of the heart, of vulnerability. He shows a church willing to suffer with people.
The synergy seems powerful. Leo's discipline and theological clarity, Tagle's emotional fluency and cultural intuition.
It's a potent mix for deep spiritual renewal, not just institutional power plays, strengthening the core mission.
It feels like a time for honest questions, not easy answers. The church has faced tough times before.
Persecution, wrestling with science, art, Vatican II self-examination, today feels similar. It demands we declare again, with conviction and vulnerability, that Christ is present.
Pope Leo's early homilies seem to echo that, church as a field hospital.
Yes, urgent welcome, healing for a wounded world. He avoids slogans, speaks simple truths, mercy, responsibility, love, but emphasizes that when lived authentically, they become fire.
And maybe the biggest challenge isn't external, but internal. Spiritual fatigue.
That's a real concern. Many lay Catholics feel restless, longing for the church to speak to their hearts with clarity, conviction, and compassion. And Tagle, speaking from that place of personal vulnerability and pastoral experience, he's uniquely able to meet that need.
So Leo's pause, his meeting with Tagle first, it wasn't hesitation, it was discernment.
Exactly. In an age screaming for noise, choosing silence to listen is radical. In a time demanding quick reactions, prophetic leadership often lies in prayerful consideration. That pause created space to think about leadership, about the kind of church they hope to serve.
It showed that unity starts with listening. He's modeling leadership that listens first.
And the church's real strength ultimately isn't just in Rome. It's in the people.
The prayers of mothers, priests' work, youth testimony, acts of service.
Those are the deep roots. That's what sustains the church through anything.
So what lies ahead? The path isn't totally clear.
No, but the signs point to a papacy valuing patient listening, symbolized by trust in a cardinal seen as a voice for the future. It suggests a global church waking up to this deep hunger for spiritual reformation, getting back to encounter, mercy, service.
It's not about fearing uncertainty, maybe, but preparing for it.
Recognizing the gospel as the roadmap. And unity isn't built on politics, but on the conviction that Christ is still leading, often in quiet, unexpected ways.
This moment, this crossroads, it really belongs to all of us, doesn't it? Leaders like Leo and Tagle are vital, yes, but they're only part of the story.
The real work. The living faith, that happens day to day, in homes, parishes, communities, by the faithful, by you.
True renewal doesn't just flow down from Rome.
It flows up from lived faith, attending Mass with purpose, praying the rosary, acts of mercy, just trying to live the gospel authentically in your family, your job, your choices.
So this isn't a time for passive spectating. The meeting, the call to listen, humility, service.
Yeah.
It feels like a call to participate.
A clear call. Will you take it up? Re-engage with faith more deeply, commit to prayer, reach out to the margins, live out the gospel's power in a world that needs it so much.
The model from these two leaders is there. Pastoral leadership, rooted in prayer, present with people, like Leo.
And holiness and humility aren't weaknesses, they're strengths, like Tagle shows. The church needs your participation, your lived faith, to be that listening, welcoming presence.
So whatever happens with appointments in Rome, remember where the church's heart really beats.
In its people, in your homes, your communities, your quiet witness. Stay connected, stay engaged, pray for leaders, support your parish. Don't underestimate the power of faith lived quietly, faithfully.
It makes you think. In an age craving noise and certainty, Pope Leo chose silence to discern. He signaled his path through trust in a cardinal who embodies listening.
So what is this quiet revolution, this call to deeper authenticity and mission? What does it ask of you? In your own life, your own faith journey?